So welcome to our second session with respect to Business Breakfast with the MBA program, and welcome to Dominic.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us this morning. We've got some questions for you lined up to understand a little bit more about your background. So did you want to give us a little bit of your background first and let us know who you are?
Of course. So Dominic Corbin, my current role at the moment is a IT program manager. A little bit about myself. So I grew up in East London. From there I went through state education, very much into computer science, and as a kid kind of developing kind of rudimental websites for friends and family, kind of turned that into a small business when I was in my teenage years. One thing I realised is that the websites, although they were technically correct, let's say, on the design side they looked terrible. They were just big, chunky websites. So I decided to go into a design course during college. Kind of fell in love with design, to be honest, and much to the dismay to my mother, I decided to take a design degree as opposed to a computer science degree, knowing that I had that technical background and I was very much a self-learner on the IT side. So I always knew I could fall back into the technical space. So kind of followed my passion into design. Once I left university, I then got back into the digital industry whilst having that design background. So again, it was a very unique position to be in, to have that design aspect as well as the technical aspect, and that I think those two skills naturally led me towards project management, which is more around taking these tangible ideas of the design and the technology and bringing them through to a tangible deliverable. From there, I almost fell into project management, let's say, and I kind of worked in various agencies and companies, recently working for Merchant Cantos on an agency as a project manager, and then more recently moved into the program management sphere for a company called La Perla, and now for New Look, which is where I am now.
Fantastic. All right. So what was we've already done that question, so I'm going to skip it. So you currently work in e-commerce. It's quite can you explain the types of skills that you need to work in that industry?
Sure. So e-commerce, first of all, is, so again, in its essence, it's basically just buying online. So again, of course, normal commerce, you would go into bricks and mortar store and you buy your products by paying over cash. E-commerce is, again, we put it all online. So this is, you would go to a website, you would use your card. Again, there's various other ways to complete those purchases. And then it's the process of how we build out that journey from the user going onto the website, making the purchase, and then how we get that product to you at home, and then again, depending if you want to return the item, etc. The market is extremely fast-paced, and at the moment I currently work in the retail sector of e-commerce. Lots of disruption, working in the fast fashion industry specifically. I would say the kind of skill sets that you need, from my point of view in the program and project management sphere, is you need to have an understanding of the technical as well as the commercial, as of course there is a technical aspect of, e-commerce is based on digital, although we're all digital. There's an aspect you need to understand around the technology of how these systems work. You don't need to go into detail, but you need a concept around how they work. But you also need to understand there's a commercial aspect, which is, okay, it's great, we may have the best website in the world, the best user experience that customers love, but if they're not buying products from those sites, then there isn't much need. So it's very much a very core balance between what's the technical aspect as well as that commercial aspect, balancing up those requirements, and then make sure you bring the right teams together to actually deliver what the business users wants, and also what the business wants, what the customer wants, and what's technically viable, is bringing those three together to deliver a product that the end users like. And then once that product's delivered, which is very key, is the feedback loop, to make sure even though we've delivered it to the customer, we're measuring that, and then we're also feeding that back into what our next developments will be. So it's almost like a huge cycle of us building products, we develop them out here, we get feedback from customers, that feedback then goes back into the loop.
Fantastic. So what is the transition? You mentioned between project and program management. You mentioned the fact that you started in design, you moved into the project management, and then now you're more focused on the program management. What's the key difference in that transition?
Okay, so the first transition I would say from a designer developer into project management is, I'd say the most important skills, you need to take yourself out of the work. this is more around the idea of delegation and leadership and coaching people into developing an idea which you have on that project management side. So I'd say project management, the transition from the doing, let's say, to the leading is very much around understanding delegation and coaching your teams and being slightly hands-off when it comes to doing the work. When it comes to the project and program management, I'd say the biggest transition that I felt personally was more around, I'd say it's more having that wider view. It's more around taking into consideration the dependencies between multiple projects. And I'd say the most important thing is priorities. It's around priorities, and this isn't just priorities from the business, this is priorities on your technical capabilities within the resources you have around how you order those projects and how they all relate to each other. So your coaching becomes more around coaching project managers around how they should be working together based on roadmaps that we have delivered. So I'd say the biggest transition for me from the project management to the program management is understanding all of these projects are interrelated and how they should be working together to deliver the optimal outcome of the program. So you're very much communicating around, outcomes. Project management's more around the outputs. So, your job there could be to deliver a house or to deliver a website. That's great, you can do that perfectly. The program level is based on outcomes, so it's making sure that right house sits within the right street of all the other houses that are being built, rather than a house plonked in the middle of nowhere, for example. So project management is the output. Let's say program management is more around the outcomes, and it's communicating that outcomes and vision.
Fantastic, thank you for that. So e-commerce is a fast-paced, disruptive industry. So what management techniques in particular do you use to manage that?
So I've recently changed I wouldn't say recently changed. Again, because I came from, when I originally moved into project management, it was very much a waterfall based, let's say, and again, very much based on the PMP, so this is the Project Management Institute, and that was very much of, we do our design up front, then we move into technical, then we move into test, then we move into deliver, and that's the end of your project, let's say. The management style I've now moved more towards is more around this agile, and it's the idea of, putting more trust into your teams, and it's slightly moving away from the hierarchy. So my goal is very much to flatten the structure in whatever company I'm in, to remove those hierarchies, to the people who are actually delivering the value. We want to hear their opinions, and it's not so much around the command and control of I say you do. There's something we need to do, and how do we get there together? And again, it's definitely a balancing act, and I do employ the agile mindset. So with all of our teams, we make sure that agile principles are communicated. There's very clear visions. It's very much on a one-to-one. It's more around the people skills, I would say. So I'd say my management style before was very much documentation heavy. There's a very defined goal of what we need to get to, and it's my job to make sure you all get there. And if you're not getting there, I'm going to make sure I drag you across the line. Whereas now it's more of, well, what do we see as this goal outcome that we want to deliver? Are we all bought into this? We make sure we take feedback, so this kind of goal or vision is slightly more fuzzy, but we're all kind of bought into this idea and this goal. And then as a team, we work out how best we get there. And my job is, again, it's almost in the back of my mind, I'm trying to make my job redundant in a sense, as I want to make sure these teams are being as self-sufficient as possible. So I kind of see my role more as a coach, and whenever I'm asked questions, is make sure I'm pushing those questions back to the team. And that's something that I found extremely difficult when trying to move to this mindset of, I assume as being their line manager, for example, is I should have all the answers. Whereas, again, if you truly want to build these self-sufficient teams, is you need to keep asking these questions back to them. Doesn't mean you need to be laissez-faire and I don't do any work. It's you guys need to sort it, but it's you're part of that team as opposed to their manager. So I'd say that's the idea of flattening the structure is definitely more of the management style, I would say. And again, as e-commerce is so fast-paced, the speed of delivery that we need to move towards needs to be as quick as possible. So it's about removing all of those blockers. So again, when it comes to hierarchy, that means if someone has an idea and it needs to go off like 4 different chains through 10 different processes, we're flattening that structure. Is we make the decision there as a team first of all, and we just trial and test it and get it out to market. We get feedback from the customers. So something we did build at our current company is these kind of like stronghold like beta users where we push out these new ideas to them, we get feedback and then we relay it back, and once we feel happy with that, then we get it out to the customer. Whereas before it's very much, we would do the design, we'd wait till the design's done, then we'd move to the development. If there was something wrong with development and design didn't like, then we'd go backwards and forwards. No one's really bought into the decision. There's lots of process. We end up delivering something that's usually out of date, the customer doesn't really want, and the team not really bought into. So that kind of flat structure within this fast-paced e-commerce industry is definitely key if you want to be successful.
I can see, so certainly I can see the benefit for the employee working in that agile environment. It sounds like it's very empowering for them, and it would be more enjoyable knowing you have the degree of influence that they do. And you've touched on the fact that speed is one of those benefits from a company perspective. Are there other benefits to working in this agile fashion?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of benefits and there's also lots of disbenefits as well. And again, I'd say on the benefit side, the other key benefit is, is employee morale. That's one of the key things we've noticed is, the teams feel a lot more engaged. They feel like they have part of what this product is. I'd say the other one, speed of delivery by far is the biggest one for us, and employee morale. I'd also say our costs have also come down as well. I mean, the amount of resources we need to deliver a particular product has, again, vastly reduced because our overheads on the amount of processes that was needed before has come down, so we don't need as much resource to deliver these types of products. And also we're starting to notice that has impacts on the wider business, for example. So they look at our teams as ways that we should be moving forward, as again this whole idea around change in e-commerce and it being fast paced and the idea of innovation, they realise that the company as a whole is very traditional and they can't move as fast as they want, and they're looking at our teams for inspiration around how they can scale out these agile approaches into the larger business. Which brings me on to some of the disbenefits of working in this way is, first of all, is you need to have the right team around you. If you have a bad egg in your team, then it really it disrupts everything because people take this as an advantage to not do any work. So that's why I say my role is not to completely step back and leave them to it. It's just to kind of coach, make sure there are deliverables and make sure they know where they're going and that everyone's invested. Another disbenefit is, of course, working in a traditional organisation and trying to be agile within that. Eventually they need to cross and you'll see conflict. So from the business they're expecting lots of processes and lots of documentation. My team's not really producing much documentation, so it's kind of bridging that gap between the two where we get a lot of waterfall kind of hierarchical, I'd say, like dictation that's pushed onto us, and then it's that kind of ground of satisfying the business needs but also letting the team be able to work agilely. So it's something that we're slowly trying to equal out, but again, it's a big disbenefit at the moment, as I'd say from my side, I'm probably doing 2 sets of documentation to let the team run quick and agilely, but also trying to keep up with building all this documentation to keep the rest of the business happy, let's say.
Excellent. What value do you see in your MBA?
So, I think the value from the MBA specifically is, I think it's having real world experience out in the industry at the moment is, I'd say you pick up habits where you think that's the right way to do it, but let me start again. The first thing is, I'd say when it comes to work is you only care about the outcome. It's how you get there no one cares about. And I feel that the academic side is very much around, we care about what's the process around how you get there. That's the important part around, as opposed to just getting to the final answer. And for me, I felt I was getting to a stage where I was just concentrating on the output, not taking enough consideration around how the process that it takes to get to this end goal. So even like financials, for example, so we're in a project and I'm looking at financials, I'd say how I would get there and how that accounting and budgeting is done. You start getting a little bit too lazy, let's say, and you just concentrate, okay, well, I know you're going to cost this amount, and we have a few formulas and we leave it as that. And it's almost, I felt my brain was switching off to understanding, what these formulas really meant. Instead, it was just, well, there's the outcome, it's going to cost this much, let's leave it. On the academic side, I think it takes you back to, truly understand what the intricacies of, these real outputs really come to. So it's kind of broadening my scope on that side. Also, I I feel that you can definitely get in a bubble working in your industry. Within your job, you do your daily routine and you stick to that. The MBA, of course, you get to broaden that, and you get to really dig into detail. So I mean, like with the HR and accounting and finance, like I always thought I probably fell into that Dunning-Kruger effect, where I assumed I knew everything I needed to know about HR and accounting and finance. But when you're on the course, you kind of realise, there's so much more to learn. And I would have said before I was maybe like a 7 out of 10, whereas now I'd say I'm definitely like a 2 or 3 out of 10. And there's just so much to learn. So I'd say that's the biggest value of, let's say, it's more around the depth of knowledge, let's say. I feel like I still have a clear overview on all of the topics, but I mean, if someone was to quiz me, you kind of realise there's not too much that you really know about it. So I think it's that, that depth, and it kind of, and again, it's almost like your evolution as a person and like personal development. It's kind of taking you to that next level and having tutors pushing you along the way. It's not you going, on your own, reading the book and thinking, all right, I know everything. It's, you're being tested and quizzed. The people that we work with here, so the other students are, very engaging. So of course they kind of question and debate, and it makes you, again, kind of question the ideas that you had before, and again, kind of build out from there. So I'd say they're kind of the key values.
Fantastic. All right, so what is your personal management style, and do you feel it's effective across your technical and also your business stakeholders?
So I'd say, again, as I briefly mentioned before, management style is around very much that flat and moving towards that open structure. So it's a mix between the two, as I feel, because I'm very keen on the idea of like situational leadership. So the way that I manage commercial teams to the way I manage technical teams is completely different, let's say. Although I still have like the basic principles around, it should be open, it should be flatter, but when it comes to technical teams, it's very much, the information that they have and the way that they like to do stuff is very like process oriented, in the sense that it is an art form and we can kind of be flexible. So I have to treat them almost as creatives. So the management style there is very much let me get your feedback, and it's not so much of me inputting onto them, it's more around me questioning. Whereas when it comes to the commercial side, it's more of, I'd say it's more deeper collaboration, because I also have the technical understanding of almost like building the ideas. With the commercial team, it's more around like building the ideas. The management style is more of a collaboration, whereas with the technical team, I'd say it's more of a coaching to make sure they have everything they need to deliver, whereas on the commercials, it's how do we work together to build something that's technically possible.
Okay. So you didn't study computer science. How do you deal with those kind of technical questions that come up in those technical teams?
Yeah, so I mean, it can be very difficult, to be honest, and I would say it's something that I almost, if I could have had my time again, I think I would have liked to have done computer science. But again, there's so many resources out there that you can learn. You can learn all this information, from online video. And again, I was very much a self-learner when I started, to be honest. And I would say one of the key things about in the role of program project management is, we're not technically doing the work. So you don't need to be able to actually develop, but the key thing that you need to understand is what's the concept around how these, how do these systems work together, and that integration. If you can understand it at a higher level, which you need to bring your teams in that explain the low level. And again, if you were someone who could understand all the way from the low all the way to the top, I would say you would find that maybe your business acumen may not be up to scratch, let's say, because you're going to be too much focused on the downside. So yeah, although in hindsight I would have liked to have done a computer science degree, I feel that the route that I've taken has probably made me a better business and commercial, and I would say probably leader in that kind of sense.
Okay. So what is the hardest project or program you've worked on, and what were the key lessons that you took from that?
I would say the hardest project I worked on was, so you had to do an AWS migration, which is just a database migration from physical servers onto the cloud. I won't go into the technical details, we'll be here for a long time, but in a nutshell, I'd say the key learning I learned from that is don't ever cheat out on discovery. Like, make sure you understand who your stakeholders are, you know, what the solution is that you're trying to accomplish and where the value is in that solution. As, again, I would say with that project took a lot longer than it needed to because we didn't have complete buy-in from the business, we didn't have the right technical resources, and we underscoped the amount of work that was needed. So, yeah.
Is there a particular quote or philosophy or mantra that you feel is important or somehow embodies your approach to program management?
Yeah, I would say that it's not always your fault, but it's always your responsibility. Like, regardless of what happens in life, and even within project management, it's, you know, maybe someone's made a huge mistake, for example. It doesn't have to be your fault, it's nobody's fault, we don't need to work on a blame game, but it's very much just your responsibility to get that back on track. And yeah, it's something that, I follow definitely throughout project and program management of, you know, if there's issues that occur, we don't need to worry about like blaming people. What we need to understand is that, you know, there's a responsibility of specifically me and as well as the rest of the team, and it's about how we move forward rather than, you know, worrying about the blame game. So it's responsibility and learning, I'd say, is the key.
All right, we're up to the quick fire round.
Sure.
I'll ask you a series of questions, 9 in total. Hint, they're on
That's
screen in
good.
front of you. So, last book that you read?
The Principles by Ray Dalio.
Oh, fantastic. I'm reading the same one. Favourite business leader and why? Can't say Ray either.
No, I mean, I was tempted, to be honest. I would say Bill Gates.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Steve Jobs is probably the most conventional, but I think Bill Gates truly really did drive that business from, you know, something that was completely unknown. I mean, although innovation seems to be leaning more towards Steve Jobs, I really think the innovation that was at Microsoft during the early days of Bill Gates was inspiring, and then obviously his kind of mantra and how he's kind of understood that he needs to pass the mantle on over, and again his philanthropy work as well, I think is definitely inspiring.
Trying to get rid of malaria.
Yeah.
Favourite person outside of business and why?
Wow. Okay, it's gonna have to be Will Smith.
Fantastic.
I think he just has the right codes. I think his moral codes on point. You can tell he's extremely, his work ethic is admirable. He's been through a huge amount of failures and, you know, kind of bounced back from them. So yeah, I think he's someone who just has a really positive outlook on life, as well as, you know, knows when to work hard and knuckle down.
Fantastic. Country with the biggest opportunity for e-commerce?
Okay, so the biggest opportunity, so at the moment I'd say it's going to be somewhere in the South America, so maybe Brazil, but I mean, China I still thought was, I mean, at the moment China is definitely the dominant, but yeah, I think the growth is going to be somewhere in South America as well.
Favourite quote?
Make sure your servings towel is bigger than your ego, and then the ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so in the sense that you should always check your ego at the door. It's that, again, having a big ego makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense. You know, the way you should be living life, and again, the way you should be working, is the idea about serving people. And again, you'll find that when you're serving people, they end up serving you. And it's, again, if it's an ego thing, it's, you know, it's fake. Nobody likes it. It just kind of breeds. Yeah, even like personal life, just breeds that, you know, very destructive culture.
Yeah. Excellent. How do you unwind or relax?
So I go to the gym a lot and work out. I'm a big believer in healthy body, healthy mind.
Excellent. What's your go-to spot for information around education?
I should have brought this on. Okay, I'm going to say, and again, only because it's on the e-commerce, that I do go to business and fashion is very key. And again, only because it's a mix between technical and on the fashion industry. It's just it's very focused around what I do.
Okay. And what's the last show that you watched?
Last show that I watched was, I'm actually watching The Sinner at the moment on
Okay.
Netflix. Mm-hmm.
Recommend it?
Yeah, series 1. Series 2, yeah, very good so far.
Excellent. And what's the biggest thing you've learned so far on your MBA?
Biggest thing I've learned so far on MBA. Okay, I would say it's actually more recent within the people and organisations course, and specifically around the importance of people. Before, I always thought I knew how important it was, how important people were in organisations, but I think going through the people and organisations really drilling home that they're the foundation and core around how we deliver and how we do anything.
Okay, fantastic. Dominic, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better.
Great.